Welcome back to Us Against Everything. I am Liz.
I'm Landen.
And today we've got a surprise episode for you.
Yay!
Lindsay Clancy.
Legendary.
I know. You're probably sitting there thinking, Liz, haven't you talked about Lindsay Clancy enough already? Apparently not.
Absolutely not. She is a hot topic in today's media.
I mean, every day this trial continues, we end up with more questions than we had the day before. So, I mean...
Absolutely. Now, half the time we're watching the testimony together, and I'm just sitting here, looking at Liz like, did you just see that? Did you just hear that? And what the fuck was that? Specifically, when we get to her lawyer speaking.
Oh my God, the lawyer is a joke. Her lawyer is a joke. I'm just like, bud, retire. Literally. And then, if I'm working and Landen is like in the background in the other room watching this trial, he's like blowing up my phone like, oh my God, you have to hear this. Did you see this on the TV? Because I have it on in the background. What is happening right now? It's hilarious. He is so into it.
It's because it's one of those trials where every day something happens that makes everybody completely rethink something different than you thought yesterday, or aligns even more with what you thought yesterday.
Exactly. So before we jump into our Tupac episode, and we will, I promise you that, which is coming next week, we both looked at each other and said, we need to do a full episode on this because this case has gotten way too complicated for my little mini videos.
And it's definitely caused a huge divide.
Has it ever?
We have the divide of people who are 100% with Lindsay, which disgusting.
Ew!
Then you have people who think she's guilty without question, which is us. And then you have a few people left over who are kind of stuck somewhere in the middle, trying to figure out what is true and what is not true.
I don't disagree with you. So before anyone gets mad, I'm just going to say this now. If you're firmly on the poor Lindsay train, this episode may not be for you.
Don't touch grass now!
Because Landen and I are going to tell you exactly where we stand after watching this trial unfolds. I mean, it's not that difficult to see. And that doesn't mean we're completely 100% right.
It's hard to believe.
It also doesn't mean you're 100% wrong. It just means we're giving you our honest thoughts after following every single vision, every single day of testimony. And for me at this point, and I don't think it's going to change, I'll be also sharing the psychic impressions, but it's just a vibe I get,
Absolutely. Definitely probably stop listening right now if you are 100% team Lindsay didn't do it, Lindsay's not guilty, or even if you're one of those crazy people out there right now saying that Patrick killed these children.
Oh yeah, the Patrick killing scheme, because he did it all. He grabbed the takeout, he went to the store and got...
Apparently people are saying that he killed the children first, then left to go get the takeout, changed his shoes magically in between there because he's wearing two different shoes.
Yeah, they're about to change
Went to
clothes.
the CVS and then magically went home and tried to kill Lindsay too on top of it.
Yeah, I heard that theory and saw that come up on my TikTok.
Now, honestly, if you do disagree with us, that's completely okay. We're not here to try to convince you. We're just here to have a conversation and point out all of the facts and also what Liz is psychically seeing when channeling this case and the children.
I don't think people really understand how my psychic abilities work, but I'm just going to give a quick little overview. I am so good at the psychic side of things that you don't even need to be in front of me. You can be close by in another state and I could still feel your energy. Seeing somebody through a TV screen, I can really pick up people's energy, especially live platforms.
I was just about to say specifically when it's live broadcasting and they're there in real time.
Right. So one thing I want to make crystal clear before we get started, because, I can't believe I have to say this, but this is not an attack on postpartum depression. This is not an attack on postpartum psychosis. Those conditions are real and serious, and women experiencing them deserve help immediately so we don't get to a Lindsay Clancy place, you know?
Absolutely, definitely. We should have way more preventative measures in place before it gets to the point that Lindsay decided to go.
Right. And the question in this case isn't whether postpartum psychosis existed. The question is whether that actually was what happened here. And I'm going to put a statement out here as well. I don't discredit people who are heavily working on their mental health issues, and I don't discredit that things like that do take place, but I also feel like accountability is needed in those moments as well. Like, for instance, I had a very abusive ex-husband, and I got the feeling constantly that he wanted to kill me.
Oh, shit!
Only if I left him, of course, but it was on the forefront of his mind. And he was somebody who was diagnosed with being a manic bipolar. And unfortunately, if he decided to take my life and my child, who he often lunged towards,
I'm scared.
would there be justice for me and my kid? And because of his mental health issues, there's a possibility that it wouldn't, that I wouldn't receive justice, and that's not fair either. I feel it to be unfair for the children to not receive justice.
I 1,000,000% agree with that. That is my biggest takeaway from this case specifically that I do want to point out here today to all of you, whoever is listening. I hope this gets to Lindsay one day. We need to remember, we need to stop fighting for Lindsay's mental health because her mental health has nothing to do with current day. Mm-hmm. And although we're trying to decipher if she was in that psychosis in that moment, it doesn't take away, this is not a permanent thing, but what is permanent is those 3 children's lives are permanently over.
Right.
Forever.
Forever!
And Lindsay is still alive, breathing, able to go through trial, able to live her life still.
In a very privileged position in medical care of, I'm sure, the best doctors.
Absolutely. And we need to remember justice needs to be served for the children.
Right.
Lindsay, although she may or may not, as we go through this episode, was experiencing a psychosis, she still needs to be accounted for the action she chose to do that fatal night.
Absolutely.
That is what we are hoping is going to happen with this trial, is they will give us the answers we need and justice for these kids.
And as we're recording this, we are only day 6 testimony-wise. By the time you hear this, I'm sure many more days will happen because this episode gets dropped on Friday. And if that's the case, we'll have an updated episode for you after the verdict has been reached. But after 6 days, I actually feel stronger about my visions than I did even before this trial even started. So let's go all the way back to the beginning of this case.
On January 24th, 2023, Lindsay Clancy was at home in Duxbury, Massachusetts with her 3 children, Cora, who was just 5 years old, Dawson, who was 3 years old, and baby Callan, who was just 8 months old at the time. Patrick Clancy was also present, which is Lindsay's husband, and he was home with all of them that evening.
Lindsay asked Patrick to leave the house to pick up takeout food and medication. She used exercise bands to kill all 3 of the children. Afterwards, she went upstairs, injured herself, and then jumped from a 2nd-story window.
Which was only a 12-foot drop, by the way. And there's something else that we keep going back to as well, is that 47-second phone call between Patrick and Lindsay. Patrick was pulling into the neighborhood. He was almost home, and they spent 47 seconds on the phone together. 47 seconds. That may not sound like very much to you, doesn't sound like very much to me, but in this case, it felt like forever.
I mean, even myself, I record 1-minute TikTok videos all the time, and you wouldn't believe what I can get in a 40-second video.
Even editing these podcasts, 47 seconds is a lot of talking.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
Seriously, if everything had already happened or was about to happen, how are we having a conversation Like, how are we not picking up on panic, not screaming, not like out of breath, like get home, something's wrong. Like that part just blows my mind.
Mine too. I just don't know how you were able to unalive one or two or all of the children right before you took this phone call, and you're not severely out of breath, or, you're not panicking in some sort, you're not freaking out, and you're not mentioning at all about your mental state.
Right. And I mean, Patrick has testified, and let's just put ourselves in his shoes for just a minute, okay? He was simply driving home, had no idea what he was about to walk into. So, like, the conversation from what he said sounded fairly normal. In fact, Patrick said that this was one of Lindsay's best days.
I'm having the best day ever.
Damn. And this was a best day?
Right. Did Patrick notice anything that seemed off? Not at all. Not even a little bit. And considering they were married for 6+ years at that point, so wouldn't you notice if your wife sounded a little off? Those are questions that I would be asking myself.
Exactly. As you said, Patrick was just driving home. He was just thinking about, we're going to eat dinner, maybe thinking about helping putting the kids to bed or what he was going to do with the kids before they went to bed. And then he doesn't even realize that his entire life is about to change.
Literally is sick to think. Now, when I heard about the 47-second call, I immediately thought, okay, this is going to matter. Not because we know exactly what it was. I mean, we don't know all the details, but the timing matters. Those were essentially the last moments before Patrick walked through that front door.
And that's the part that I am having a hard time wrapping my head around. If someone is in such a complete mental break and a psychosis, I am maybe expecting some chaos, maybe an indicator that something was wrong. Like I said, heavy breath, I did something bad, I'm not well, something, anything during this phone call.
Maybe even questions like, how long until you're home, even if she didn't want to share.
Right, anything. And she never mentioned again about her mental state at all. And she never mentioned anything about the children not being well, not being dead, not driving her crazy, not a single thing about the children.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. And Patrick returned home and ended up finding Lindsay outside and then made the devastating discovery inside the house. Like, can you imagine?
So crazy, I cannot imagine. It makes me sick thinking of this. After Lindsay told him the kids were in the basement when Patrick found her outside, she did not share the dread of them actually being dead.
Right. So he wasn't given a heads up. Like, that to me was like a big fuck you to him.
Exactly. Lindsay was able to mutter that the kids were in the basement, but not say dead in the basement.
Right. Basement, big word, dead, 4-letter word. No. Cora and Dawson did in fact die that evening. Callan was taken to Boston Children's Hospital, where he later passed away.
During testimony, the doctor who was helping Callan stated that Callan could have lived if there was only a few more moments.
Like if they got to him quicker?
Yes. Callan could have survived. If he would have left Lindsay and went to tend to Callan, he could have saved Callan.
That is horrifying.
Imagine hearing that. Imagine hearing that on the stand, that your baby could have survived if you would have went to save your child instead of your wife.
Even in that 47-second call, she could have told him, hey, so I did hurt the kids. They're in the basement. He could have ran down.
He could have sped the fuck home faster. He could have avoided Lindsay altogether and, like you said, called 911 on his way home and got home and did something to help his child.
Right.
We believe that this was planned.
Oh, yeah.
The defense is saying that Lindsay was suffering from postpartum psychosis and was unable to appreciate the wrongfulness of what she was doing. Lies. Fucking lies.
Right. Now, I want to point out that again, we believe in that, and again, still need to be held responsible for their actions. But I don't believe Lindsay was suffering from this whatsoever. We believe it was planned. Those are two completely different explanations for the exact same tragedy.
And that is why this trial has become so polarizing, because depending on which side you believe, you end up seeing every piece of evidence completely different, knowing the tragedy behind it.
I think we need to slow down and talk about something that keeps getting mixed up online. I keep seeing people using postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. They're the same thing, and they're really not. And if we're going to have an honest conversation about this case, we need to understand the difference first.
So far in the testimony, we have seen that Lindsay has only been diagnosed with postpartum anxiety.
And I agree, postpartum psychosis is considered a psychiatric emergency, but it's rare. And when it happens, it can be devastating.
It is literally a 1 in a million phenomenon. And someone experiencing a postpartum psychosis, this rare phenomenon, can experience hallucinations. They may experience delusions, severe paranoia, extreme confusion, disorganized thinking, or completely lose touch with reality. Some women even believe that they may be hearing voices. Some believe someone is trying to hurt their children or themselves. Some genuinely believe that they are protecting their children because their brain is no longer processing reality correctly. And some people, as we've heard on testimony, are able to plan. They're able to organize. They're able to do these things. Lindsay also has never testified or stated prior to this that she was hearing voices.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so dangerous. This isn't someone simply feeling overwhelmed by having a baby. And it isn't the same thing as postpartum depression. The depression side is also very real. It can cause sadness, anxiety, exhaustion, which she had all of the above. Difficulty bonding with her baby. I feel that too. Feelings of guilt. I felt that too. Feeling like you're failing as a parent. That's a very normal feeling. And people with postpartum depression genuinely remain connected to reality even though they're struggling.
And that is a very important distinction between the two.
Yes, and just because this might be happening to someone doesn't mean that they're about to have a postpartum psychosis.
Absolutely.
I personally don't believe that postpartum psychosis explains what we've seen here.
I also agree to that. But where do you think that it all started?
Personally, I don't think she started feeling this day the day the kids died. I think this happened long before that. I went back and read Lindsay's own social media posts, and I noticed something. She talks about how much life had changed after becoming a mom. She talked about how difficult things had become. Now, lots of parents obviously feel this way, and that's not unusual. I even went through that. Parenthood is hard. But when I put those posts together with everything else we've learned, I get the impression of someone who's becoming increasingly unhappy with the life that they were living. Not necessarily unhappy with just their children, but everything else. And I think there's a difference.
You and I have talked about this a lot. Now, parenting is very difficult with all that life, throws at you.
And I feel like some resentment slowly started to build. I also feel like the relationship between her and Patrick had changed. Like the two of them lost that romantic spark. You know the feeling. They weren't necessarily communicating on a day-to-day basis. It was just around each other for the kids, having no time together, disconnecting. They were surviving life instead of enjoying it together. Trying to keep the kids happy. They're going to these water parks and stuff, all things for the kids. I feel like they struggled to really connect. She seemed increasingly focused on the medical side of things with her kids and herself. She's kind of been giving me a Dee Dee Blanchard vibe,
Yes, a Dee Dee with the Munchausen syndrome. Listening to this case, I definitely felt some of that way when we were going through the testimony on day 5 of them reading some of Lindsay's notebook entries. She was very calculated with medication, sleeping schedules, all those things, which is the same kind of thing that was in the documentary with Dee Dee Blanchard, how she became increasingly paranoid about Gypsy's medical health. And I feel like that was kind of where Lindsay was going.
Right. And I believe that Patrick was really getting just uber annoyed with it because it was always something medical she was focusing on. And I feel like he checked out out of the conversation with her about her medical history a long time ago. Now, Patrick didn't seem to live in the same world as her at the moment, and that's why they were kind of just existing to exist.
Now, something else that keeps coming up a lot is little Dawson.
Oh my God, my heart breaks for that kid. Let's talk about Dawson real quick. On a live a few days before the trial started, I hadn't read any of the details about her relationship with her kids, let alone Dawson, but I felt instantly that, she didn't have much of an issue with Cora. Of course, normal problems. She did, I feel like, make up a couple of medical conditions for Cora, exaggerating some elements of fever, sickness, that kind of thing. But with Dawson, he was exceptionally challenging and difficult from the very beginning. I feel like she despised him. Loved him because he was her kid, but man, oh man, did she want to put him back. And would be super triggered when this child would approach her about anything, good or bad.
Definitely by the way that she killed him, I would say she had deep-rooted hatred for that child. The testimony we heard how she did it, he was the only one that was face up.
Poor kid.
Now let's move on to Callan. One thing the prosecution keeps bringing up is Callan's sleeping schedule, which we heard in those diaries. Personally, I don't think that's landing the way that they hoped it would. Lots of parents sleep train. Lots of parents are very protective of nap schedules. That alone doesn't tell us very much. I actually think the defense is missing something there too, because I do not think that the schedule itself is the most important part. I think it's why she became so focused on it.
I agree with you. This may have been a good time to suggest more of a Munchausen energy connected to that, but perhaps maybe they're trying to steer away from the medical entirely, but it feels like she was the only one who could figure out what was wrong with her kid and nobody else could. Very DD energy.
She definitely became determined that Callan was not going to become another Dawson. Almost obsessive about making sure history does not repeat itself.
And technically it kind of did because Callan had just turned 8 months, and that's when Dawson started to have his triggering episodes.
Makes sense where the trigger came from for Lindsay. Sounds more like a motive to me.
And when it does come to the nap side of things, that was more about control. I think Callan's sleep became another trigger, another pointing fact of, oh my God, he's turning into Dawson. And she had to get it perfect. And I think there was just pressure building up for her, she wasn't doing it good enough.
So when people ask you for a motive, you don't think it's just one thing?
Hell no. I don't. There's so many layers here. She's somebody who is constantly thinking. She thinks, overthinks, analyzes everything. It's layers, stress, resentment, wanting a different life, feeling trapped, trying to control the things she felt like she could not control. I think all of those things built up on top of each other. That's why I don't think this case can be explained away with one diagnosis. There's just so much going on here. For example, I'm a single mom. I gave birth to my daughter when I was 19 years old. I lived under my parents' roof. Felt like they were taking control. Once I moved out on my own, it was tough, and I had to do it on my own. Nobody was going to help me. I was overwhelmed, but I also understood that that was the next steps in my life. I didn't think, oh geez, I need to figure out a way to get rid of this kid. I think that Lindsay had thought about this over and over again, and maybe not necessarily associated with Cora after her birth, but a little bit after Dawson was born.
So now we are 6 days into the testimony behind us. Has anything that you've heard in court so far changed your opinion at all?
I mean, in a way, yeah. Not necessarily whether I think she's guilty. I felt that from the beginning, but it's strengthening what I feel. There have been several moments during this trial where I literally stopped and thought, whoa, that was important. Some of them barely made the headlines, but to me, they mattered.
So what exactly stuck out to you?
One of the biggest things was hearing she asked medical staff about getting her legal team. That immediately stood out to me. Then hearing her asking if her legs were broken, if they were working, again, that stood out. My personal impressions wasn't that she was confused about reality. It was more like someone trying to understand the severity of their own injuries and what that could mean moving forward in relation to this case.
Absolutely. Now, we had the 2 doctors testify that saw her that night that she got brought in, and both of them said that she was not in a psychosis in those moments.
Right.
She also was not able to speak the first day that she was there because she was intubated. The day that we are talking about, so the first thing the doctor asked her when she came in was, "How are you feeling?" Her first response was horrified. Her second response, immediately following that, was, "Do I have a lawyer?"
Right.
Which was very suspicious. Why are you asking for a lawyer? Again, still not talking about her children at all.
No, horrified. Not one of those doctors referenced conversations about the kids, period.
Exactly. And then she asks about her legs and everything else. Again, nothing to do with her children, nothing to do with her husband, nothing to do with anything. And then the final thing was her asking for her parents
Right.
to take over her medical proxy.
Yeah, I agree with you on the parents. I found myself wondering if she wanted them making those decisions instead of Patrick, like after everything that happened.
I mean, I guess in that moment, it just looks a little suspicious, like you're changing it from Patrick to your parents all of a sudden. But I guess also given the circumstances, she just murdered their kids. Not sure if Patrick really even gave a shit in that moment what happened
in
to
case
her.
something happened, during surgery. I get it.
And if she was to die, maybe Patrick would have been feeling mad or something and been like, I don't care.
But for me, then that just takes away from the suicidal side of it. So if you're so concerned about your medical decisions and your parents making the medical decisions for you, that means you give a fuck about your life in a way. If that was me, okay, and like maybe I'm just a different breed, but if I was in some sort of psychosis and like I came out of it, I would be feeling sick to my stomach. I would find another way to take my life. Like, I killed my kids. I'm a psycho. I'm going to try to take myself out again.
Exactly. Like if I did that to my children, my first thing at the second I can open my eyes is I'm going to try to attempt suicide again. If I was genuinely suicidal or even if I wasn't and I realized that I just killed my kids, I need to die.
Right.
Even with all those superficial wounds that she had on her, the cuts on her wrists, they were not very deep.
Her lawyer and the obsession with these cuts. Like, I know it's like your biggest thing, but no, bud. No!
Exactly. She only had one specific cut that was bigger, and it was cut into the fatty tissue, but it was above the muscle and above the veins.
Right.
And that cut, her lawyer keeps defending to all hell, saying that cut's not suicidal. No, because the blood patterns, as we saw in court, the forensic scientist has said that there was no pool of blood, which would indicate a large amount of blood being lost where it would consider that being life-threatening.
Right. And like, let's not take away from her back injuries because those were severe. However, her back injuries, although catastrophic, back surgeries were extensive. The recovery has been horrific. None of that changes what we're hearing. I still don't personally come away believing she was in the middle of a psychotic episode.
Or that she was suicidal.
Right. What stands out to me instead is how deliberate some of the decisions appear to be.
Exactly. That's the problem. Deliberate decisions.
And that's a big reason why I continue to question the defense's argument.
Absolutely. A lot of this stuff definitely seemed deliberate, like I said. A lot of pre-planning. To me, it seems like she was planning so much to make herself look like she was in a psychosis.
Facts.
And one thing that I also keep coming back to as well is the timeline. The timeline matters.
Yeah, it really does. And this bothered me from the beginning as well. Lindsay asked Patrick to leave the house to pick up takeout and medication. He leaves. And then that's when everything happens.
It just sounds so fishy. Like you cannot snap on and off a psychosis.
On command, no.
On command. So she was fine all day while Patrick was home. All day. She was not feeling sad, nothing. Patrick described that day that it was actually one of Lindsay's best days that she's had with herself, the kids. We even heard in her journal that day that she slept well the night before and was going to sleep well tonight.
Right. Like, I have a question. Let's say Patrick decided to stay home. Would any of that have happened? We'll never know.
Exactly. That's definitely a fair question because if Patrick did not go home that night, If Patrick did not go out that night, would Lindsay have still gotten her psychotic moment where she started killing the kids and tried to kill Patrick? We don't know.
And this wasn't one single action, like, drowning them in a tub or running your vehicle off of the side of the road. She moved through different areas of the house. Each child was in a different location, meaning multiple decisions, multiple actions, multiple opportunities where something could have changed. Grabbing each child, That's one of the reasons I continue to struggle with the defense's explanation.
Exactly. That's something that's really been bugging me because she had to stop like multiple times to make multiple decisions, change decisions, everything else. How are you doing this? And then Patrick comes home.
And that's another heartbreaking part. The entire internet is coming heavily for this man. Meanwhile, this woman gave him no heads up as to what the fuck he was going to walk into. He was the one who discovered what had happened. He's the one who called 911, not Lindsay, Patrick.
That 911 call, although we did not get to hear this phone call, we were only able to see some of the transcript of the 911 call.
And we're going to share that with you right here. It is a rough draft of it, but here it is.
Explain how she tried to commit suicide. Where is she now? Stay awake. How old is she? 31, 33. Is she awake? Yes. Is she breathing? Yeah. Lindsay, what did you do to your neck? She's talking. When? Last half hour. How far did she fall? 20 feet. Is she responding normally? A little bit. Wake up. What part of the body was injured? Neck. She's breathing. Lindsay, look at me. Look at me. Are there weapons? I don't see any. Where are the kids? Do not move her. Open your eyes. Can someone... Okay, Lindsay, look at me. Open your eyes. I'm gonna tell you how to stop the bleeding. It's not bleeding open wounds. She's in the backyard. Is there something on her neck? A knife or something? Can you put pressure on it? No. Lindsay, wake up. Put pressure on the cut. Lindsay, look at me. Say my name. She's conscious. Don't move her. Tell her to be still. In the 911 call, you can hear in the background whimpering and sirens in the distance. The dispatcher says, I'm going to stay on the phone with you. Is there a fence? Right here, right here. I need you to stay so I can go check on my kids. At this point, he does not know where the kids are. He just thinks that Lindsay has tried to commit suicide. So he goes into the house, goes into the basement, and that's what's happening right here. Hello, guys, guys. And then he starts yelling, oh no, wake up. And he's screaming. And either the dispatcher or whoever's there with him says, what is he screaming about? You can hear him crying, screaming, gasping. Oh my God, screaming more. Hello, what's going on? Basement. Oh my God. The dispatcher says, hello. And all you can hear is more screaming. And he says over and over, she killed the kids. Oh my God, more just screaming over and over. And the operator says, oh shit.
You can definitely hear how blindsided Patrick was in that.
Oh yeah, like we're just hearing the words, but you can feel it. I don't know how I would react, but I know that if I was Patrick, I would want to go outside and strangle her. Like obviously, there were people there to make sure it didn't happen, but I would want to. I'd go outside and scream at her at the very least.
Absolutely something like, what the fuck did you do here, I also never got the impression that Patrick believed his kids were in any danger before he walked out of that door that day. Did he think she was being a little crazy with the medical stuff? Absolutely. But did he think that she was going to haul off and murder her children? No.
I mean, if Patrick believed for even 1 second that his kids weren't safe, I don't believe he would have left. I think he believed he was leaving his children with their mother while he ran what should have been a completely normal errand like any other day. That's important because hindsight makes everyone look obvious. Real life doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And I also want to mention in the testimony that we've heard so far as well, Patrick was never told that he shouldn't leave the kids alone with Lindsay or that Lindsay was a danger to herself or the children. Now, according to Lindsay, she was in such a psychosis that she shouldn't have been left with the kids. A lot of people on the internet are saying that Patrick should have just known that she shouldn't have been left alone with the children. But how would he know something like that if Lindsay, who is the one who is experiencing these thoughts, never was honest with Patrick or her doctors?
Right.
For them to say that, because I don't feel for 1 second a doctor would have just been like, yep, leave the kids with her. Who gives a fuck? Let her kill them. Like,
No.
the other important thing is everyone wants to say, well, I would have, or maybe not. It's really easy to say what you would have done when you already know the ending.
Right.
Patrick didn't know what he was going into.
Not at all. And that's why I have a lot of compassion for him. He's going to spend the rest of his life wondering if one different decision could have changed everything. I can't even imagine carrying that kind of weight.
So sad. Now let's talk about something that that people have been debating since the very first day, which is the medical evidence.
God.
There is several things that stood out to the both of us.
One thing that stood out to me was hearing about her injuries. The jump from the second-story window causing catastrophic injuries. There's no question about that. She suffered devastating trauma from the fall. We get it, lawyer. But what caught my attention were the injuries that happened before the jump.
And we're talking about those cuts.
Based on the testimony we've heard so far, those wounds have been described as superficial, and that word has triggered her lawyer to high heaven.
Only 1,000 times we heard that.
And there wasn't testimony describing massive loss of blood about these injuries. There were testimonies about the blood on her bra and a few droplets, but it didn't describe heavy, active bleeding from those cuts.
Exactly, which again, her lawyer was heavily focused on because, again, he is pushing this medical thing, how she was in such a psychosis. But as we heard from those testimonies today and throughout the last 6 days, there is nothing describing catastrophic injuries in those cuts specifically that would pertain to suicidal or life-threatening, needs severe medical attention.
Right, and that's one of the questions I keep coming back to. Lindsay's profession. She worked as a labor and delivery nurse. She had medical training. She understood anatomy. She understood injuries. She understood how the human body worked.
It's definitely another piece of the puzzle. Another question is, why are her injuries so different than what happened to those kids? Why did she decide to cut herself and jump out of a window, and then she strangled her children? And why didn't she just strangle herself?
I mean, it's a very good question. She had no problems taking those kids' lives, choking them out to death, but could not do it to herself.
And knowing that she is a medical professional, we definitely know that she would know how to end her own life. Now let's talk about Patrick here for a minute, because I feel like he's almost become kind of like the forgotten victim in all of this.
Right? Watching his testimony was so heartbreaking. I can't even imagine having to sit in a courtroom and relive the worst day of your life in front of complete strangers.
Oh, terrible. And to think if she had just maybe pled guilty, she could have maybe saved Patrick from doing all of that. But again, she doesn't give a shit about anyone but herself. She just doesn't want to go to prison.
Right. And then knowing millions of people are watching and picking apart every facial expression, every word, every decision you made, I don't envy him one bit.
Right. Apparently his shoes were 2 different fucking shoes.
Oh, brother.
One thing that has bothered me is how many people online continue to keep blaming Patrick, as I've said before, because they keep saying they shouldn't have had another baby or he should have stayed home, which he was. He was staying at home all the time. He worked from home. He should have known. Known what? Lindsay is the one experiencing this. What exactly should he have known?
Right.
If she's not being honest with him, how does he know?
The sentence shouldn't really be they shouldn't have had another baby, that he should have stayed home. It should be they shouldn't have had another baby because she was going to kill the kids. If he had known that, he wouldn't have had another baby.
Right. And also these statements like he should have seen the warning signs. It's really not that simple.
No.
Especially when someone's not being honest or doing their course of treatment that a trained professional has told them to do.
And he's intact. He's not a medical professional. Put yourself in his shoes. See how you handle it. It's easy to look back after a tragedy and say what somebody would have done. But Patrick wasn't looking at it with information he has today. He was living it in real time. Those kids had the routine. There wasn't testimony describing complete chaos in their home. In fact, we heard many testimonies that earlier in the day seemed relatively normal.
Was Patrick and Lindsay's relationship, because their relationship definitely did change after the kids, like most families do.
Reality, yeah.
That's definitely a reality for them.
And obviously the relationship is going to change after kids were killed one way or another. That's a given, but some people might forgive and just say, yes, it was postpartum and carry on. Patrick did not.
One thing I definitely respect is that even through all of this, Patrick still chose to love his wife. You could hear how complicated his emotions were up there on that stand during his testimony. And he is now countersuing her medical team for malpractice because he does believe that it played a part in what happened with his children.
And I mean, that's very kind of him. I honestly just don't feel like it was rehearsed. I feel like a man who lost everything, his kids, his marriage, the future he thought he was going to have. And no matter where anyone stands with Lindsay, I hope people can have compassion for Patrick too, because he's going to carry this for the rest of his life. life.
Now we're going to get into some questions that all of you have been asking. Liz is going to answer them based off of her personal visions and also what she has heard in the testimony following this case.
Yes, yay. Let's get into it.
When you first heard about this Lindsay Clancy case, what was the very first feeling you got?
A few months ago, somebody had asked me about the case. I read it very briefly, did a little TikTok video. I felt like she intentionally hurt those children. That was my instant feeling right away. That was before I knew anything. That was going in blind. So first impression, did not feel good about it right away. Just I could see this like anger and like evil energy from within her. It wasn't psychosis from what I saw.
Do you believe that this was planned, or do you think that it happened in that moment?
Oh no, it was definitely planned. So she had been planning to get out of this situation one way or another. She was trying to come up with like methods. So I feel like it had been at least 4 weeks of planning going into this, making sure, okay, he's going to go get food. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Did she intentionally plan him to leave the house to take the kids out? Yes, because she didn't want to do it in the home with him because she knew that if she did, he could have potentially stopped it from happening.
Which also would then lead her to not have a defense of psychosis.
And she very rarely had the opportunity to be home alone with the kids. Like, yes, there were moments where he went on business trips, but rarely ever was he out of the home without at least one of the kids.
And another thing I want to mention real quick with all of this is something we didn't mention earlier. As you just stated, she was very rarely left alone with the children. She had a nanny. Dawson and Cora also went to school 5 days a week. 4 of those days they were in school for a full 7 hours. And on Thursdays they were only there for a half a day, and had a nanny for Callan. So she really wasn't like struggling alone with these kids on a daily.
Right.
Also, her husband worked from home.
Exactly. So it had to be planned out for a moment he wasn't around, or somebody wasn't around.
Or definitely like her sending him out.
Right.
Do you think that she knew what she was going to do before Patrick left the house, or did something change after he drove away?
That's the piece that I actually haven't shared with anyone. I believe that the plan was completely different than what was executed. Now, I do believe that the exercise bans had always been part of the plan. I don't, however, believe that she was planning to kill the children in the basement. It just worked out that way. Perhaps maybe feeling in the moment that if the children screamed, there would be less noise coming from the basement.
Yeah, being in a basement, you're surrounded by the ground.
Right. Either way, I feel like she was trying to muffle energy. So yes, I absolutely feel like she, without a doubt, had planned things way differently. Even cutting herself, the act itself, I believe that she ran out of time. It took a little longer than anticipated. That's the other piece. Like, the kids are squirming around. She's doing this to Dawson. Cora's watching in confusion. Like, what are you doing, mommy? What are you doing? And he's crying and screaming. And like, I also feel like she was hurting him beforehand. Like, this was a full blown, like, I've had enough of you. I'm going to kill my first problem.
Oh shit!
People ask this as well. What do you believe the motive was?
She didn't want this life anymore. I believe that a conversation between her and Patrick took place after Dawson planning to no longer have any more kids, or at least taking a break for a while, and then whoopsie daisy, all of a sudden Callan comes along. Now, I believe at that point she had considered the idea of like an abortion, and Patrick wasn't necessarily on board with that. I don't know if he was like anti-abortion or anything, but just like, well, it's meant to be kind of energy, and you know, she did not like that decision being taken away from her, but she thought, you know what, I guess I'll give it a try. But as soon as he was born, I feel like she was heavily triggered, and it was like having Dawson all over again from day one.
All right, now let's talk about Callan's sleep, because they keep bringing it up in court Why do you think that this matters?
She was so fixated that there was something heavily wrong with Dawson, and I don't disagree. I believe that Dawson could have potentially been on the spectrum of autism, but not a low-functioning child, just, needing some adjustments in his life. And I believe that she was so afraid that Callan would become his brother. This became an obsession of hers. She wanted to make sure, and honestly, I hate to say this, I feel like she shook that baby quite a bit.
Dang. One thing that really caught our attention during day 5 was her asking about her legal team, her legs, her injuries. Why is this so significant?
At that point, I don't get the vibe that she was interested in losing her life. At that point, I don't believe she understood the consequences of her actions because of white privilege as well. Like, she's never had a rough life. She thought she can kind of just do this and walk away, I feel like that when she planned this, thus the reason she had planned this suicide thing, jumping out the window, all of that, because she wanted people to pity her as they are right now.
I agree to that 1000%. As we've seen some other cases very similar to this case, all of those people are either on death row or in life in prison without parole. None of them are in a mental hospital.
Right.
Do you think that she understood what she did after the events?
I believe that she thought that she had done a good job. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I needed to do this. I no longer have to deal with children screaming, whining, crying, bothering me. Leave me the fuck alone. I feel like she had relief. Like, she had silence the moment all 3 of the children were killed, and I see that she was so happy about this silence.
Do you believe that Lindsay Clancy truly tried to kill herself or was suicidal?
No, not even kind of in the slightest. I believe that she understood that there would be injury from jumping out the window. The jumping out the window part was not part of her plan at all. She was going to cut herself so significantly that she was going to bleed everywhere and it would look like she tried to take her life, yada yada. But because she could not do it, she physically could not press down hard enough. The one cut that she did make, I keep feeling like she pushed the skin apart as much as she could to try to tear it open a little bit more, but she couldn't do it. She just didn't have it in her.
Do you think that it was more due to exhaustion from her strangling the life out of her 3 children prior to this?
No, her adrenaline was still pumping pretty significantly at that point. I believe that
she just physically couldn't bring herself to kill herself.
Right. She was able to take the bed and push it up against the wall, no problem, right? So she was able to jump out the window. But from what I feel, she ran out of time. I feel like she did not jump out that window until she heard Patrick coming home. And I think that's when she decided to jump. And she didn't have anything to jump with. And she knew she would have some injury. And she, I believe, went out feet first, toes pointed up, and landed hard to hurt herself, specifically her back.
Yeah, sympathy again.
Yes.
Do you think there is still a bombshell that's waiting in this trial that nobody sees coming?
Yeah, I do. They've kind of been pointing towards internet searches and things like that. I feel like she was looking up methods on how to take the lives of her children in a more humane way. But I think a bullet to their brain would have been a more humane way than this.
Unfortunately, much kinder. All right, here's another question. Do you think that Lindsay Clancy will testify?
No, I don't. I feel as though they will cream her if they do. I believe that she wants to avoid having her parents be on the stand or whatever the case may be, family members, but she's not going to get the opportunity. Her lawyer will not let her have that.
All right, and our final question here. If Lindsay Clancy was sitting right here across from us and you knew that she would answer a question honestly, what would you ask her?
Honestly, I would ask her why. I would ask her why she did this. I know I have an array of motives, but I want to know that exact turning point of what pushed her over the edge to go from thinking and plotting this out to acting it out and doing it.
Now, whether you guys agree with us or not, or you completely disagree, we do appreciate you guys spending the time with us listening to this case today. These conversations aren't about us telling you what to think or what to do. They are definitely about encouraging people to actually look at this evidence, listen to this trial, and think for yourself.
Absolutely. Stop getting on the boat because everybody else is. I hate people that follow others just based on what they think. Think for yourself. And, don't try to throw somebody under the bus. We can all agree to disagree. We can all have that energy, and that's okay too. But we don't need to throw each other under the bus. A lot of people keep coming at me and attacking me on my mental health, how I don't know anything about mental health connected to this case. At the same time, making fun of my body, calling me fat, all these things. But so it's okay for you to believe about this in Lindsay Clancy's case, who killed her children, but me, the one that did not kill my child, I'm being called names because I don't agree that she did this on purpose.
Right, and attacking your mental health.
Right. It makes no sense.
And also another thing to point out, all these people out here on the internet sitting here saying, oh, you can't have an opinion because you're not a mental health professional. Neither the fuck are the jury.
Right.
The jury is not made up of medical psychiatrists. It is made up of normal people like you and me, and their opinion is going to determine Lindsay Clancy's rest of her life.
I want to point out one more thing before we go. The white privilege aspect of this. I don't believe that if she was a black woman to 5 children on her own, living in some really shitty apartment and
with zero help.
Right, with
and
zero
all.
help, and killed her children, would she get the grace that people have given Lindsay Clancy?
Which we have seen a few cases recently about some mothers of color who have decided to kill their children, and every single one of them. We do not see this trial publicly. We're not hearing any of the evidence, and they all have just been immediately placed in life in prison without parole. No trial, no Lindsay Clancy stardom, no nothing.
Right.
But what I do want to bring this case back to here before we end is never lose sight of who this was really about. Cora, Dawson, and baby Callan. Those 3 children should still be here today, and they are not. So let's remember that as we go on with the rest of this trial, that we need justice for those children.
Absolutely. And again, we will be back, we promise, next week for Tupac. Cannot wait. Trial starts with the picking of the jurors here soon next week. Cannot wait. I'm so excited for Tupac's case. That's going to be another one that we're going to be heavily focusing on. And always remember, it is
us against everything.